Hello and welcome to the SohoLIFF Spotlights. I'm Liz Farahadi and I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by one of our busiest director of photographies, David Raedeker. Thank you so much for joining us today. I mean, David has worked on so many incredible projects. The two that are jumping out at the moment, of course, is the Souvenir, and also you won Best Cinematography for My Brother the Devil at Sundance, which is an incredible achievement and incredible films. I mean, that's just skimming the surface of the projects you've worked on. But thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure, yeah.
Oh, and so tell me, what are you working on at the moment?
At the moment, I just finished a project for BBC One, which is called Best Interests, which is a family drama. That was a 4-episode shoot, really fantastic crew and director, very emotional story. It was a brilliant project to work on.
Oh, excellent. And for people watching, would you be able to explain what being a director of photography actually means and what it involves?
So director of photography probably, it means basically looking after the cameras, the lighting, and that's the technical part, but it's very much you're the right-hand person for the director. And trying to support them in all kinds of ways, obviously having an idea how to visualize what the story's about, and so bringing it basically on a screen, on a two-dimensional screen, and making it all happen within the constraints and so on.
And how do you like to work with the director? Like, are you the person that goes, I really want this shot, I want it done this way, or do you have more direction from them? What do you prefer?
I mean, normally there's kind of quite a process of finding each other through interviews, really, like a normal job kind of thing, and there's already a very common ground. Normally, and that means you have a pre-production phase where you really discuss everything about the film and so on, how you want to do it, and bring suggestions. Obviously, you want to support the director, so in a way, you're listening a lot what they have to say and then suggesting things. But normally, you have kind of similar ideas, or a similar kind of approach for a lot of things, and you develop them together and prep, and then when it comes to shooting, then you have that information to kind of start, and then also that informs pretty much everything in the pre-production, then later for the shoot. So then the director can concentrate on the actors and on all the practicalities, if the weather is bad or whatever else happens and falls onto their heads, and I can get on with just taking one side away from the director, which is the visual side.
Brilliant. So let's take it back to the beginning. How did you become a director of photography? Did you always want to be one? Did you always think this is what I'm supposed to do, or how did it find you?
It was kind of, I knew something, I wanted to do something. I don't know what I was called, director for photography, but I started taking pictures very early age, and I developed them myself, black and white pictures in a dark room. At the time there was no digital around, and that was when I was like 10 or 12 or so. I did loads of that, in school. We had dark room in school, and I was in a little kind of small place in Germany, and from then on it kind of I got an opportunity to basically do a 2 weeks apprenticeship in a commercials company in Germany, and nobody knew anything about film, so that was very exotic. Like, nobody had anything to do with it, and that got me so hooked. After that, kind of onwards, really. I then became also a photographer for a while. I was a photographer's assistant, then a photographer. Then I worked in all kinds of places in the film business. I mean, I worked in Germany then in the art department, as an assistant editor on steam bags and commercials, kind of the assemblies and big kind of rolls of film, and spliced them together, and made sure that we didn't lose any kind of single frames somewhere on the floor, and repaired cameras, all kinds of things really. Before I moved to UK, and knew exactly I want to be DP, but I kind of always wanted to do something like that, to be honest.
Right, so you had a proper direction. Yeah. And can I ask you, were shorts something where you kind of cut your teeth, like short films?
Yes, I definitely, short films were I think I did one short film which was really got me an agent and is still my agent today, and that kind of started where everything looked a bit more that I actually can actually make dramas. Before I did a lot of corporates and a lot of music videos and music documentaries, which was great fun, but I thought like I'm miles away. I don't know anybody who's doing drama because it's quite divided. I think it might not be so much anymore, but in the old days, you either did drama or you did commercials or you did kind of music videos and documentaries, and so there was no crossover, not very much.
Right.
So for me it was I didn't have any access to it really, and short films enabled that access really, especially I did loads of them, but one was very successful and kind of got me other opportunities with my first feature.
That's brilliant. And so how long ago was that you got your agent then?
That was, I think, 2010 or something, or 2008, I don't know, can't remember.
So that's a really nice sort of relationship, and that's from a short film?
Yes.
Brilliant. And were you doing the festival circuits with the films?
I didn't do the festival circuits, but the short film did, and obviously the director, and she went to lots of festivals with it.
And how important was that with helping you get your work seen as well?
I think short film festivals are extremely important. I don't know where else you would see short films, really, unfortunately, because I think they are like, you probably know more, but there are not many outlets otherwise.
No.
So, it's really important. And also to find an audience which is kind of sympathetic to that format and is interested. So
you were doing these shorts, you got this agent. How did you go from there to doing My Brother the Devil?
That wasn't too far off, actually. So I did then my first feature, which was basically, I got that feature because I was a focus puller before, for almost 8 years or so, before we kind of worked slowly became a DP. And somebody, a DOP I focus pulled for a lot, an American DP who, when he came to Europe, he kind of used me. He was supposed to shoot a feature and then he couldn't do it, and so last minute I jumped in. That was my kind of break, low budget feature, and after that I got an interview basically for My Brother the Devil, which was also a very low budget film at the time being, and I obviously got it, and then the rest is kind of history. But that's how it came about, basically.
Oh, well, congratulations on that, because what a way to get your break as well. Beautiful film. Just for our people watching, what is a focus puller?
Focus puller, or first assistant camera person, is basically the person who looks after the camera and all the technicalities. Is kind of responsible for the camera department in a way on a set. And the reason why it's called focus puller is because they basically change the focus on the lens, which you can't do any other way. So that has to basically watch the actors and pull focus. But their job is a lot more involved than that. So it's not just that. Yeah.
But was that a really good way to get into becoming a director of photography?
It can be. It's definitely not the only way. I kind of slipped into becoming a DOP because at the time I just thought, I can't be a DP, is too much. Almost I had so much respect for that job. But then I got small jobs offered from production companies and started doing them, and actually got less of jobs offered as a focus puller, though kind of carried on naturally without me pushing it very hard, because I actually felt like, this is actually too big. But then it was great. It kind of very much got its own momentum.
Oh, that's cool. And going back to My Brother the Devil, how did that change? What was the changes that happened after that?
So My Brother the Devil, I think a lot of directors saw that film, and that then people were interested in me and gave me job opportunities for other jobs. So my first TV project, TV drama, came out of that pretty much.
Right, and which one was that one?
And that was Tutankhamun, directed by Peter Weber. And that was basically in South Africa for 5 months, 4-parter about Howard Carter and the discovery of Tutankhamun.
Cool. Yeah. So that was through the festivals as well, that suddenly being discovered too.
Yeah. I mean, I think you find that's the thing. Independent films are really great for it's basically other filmmakers watch your films and think, wow, okay, I want to work with them. I really like that film. It's not so much about public because I think the audience is probably much smaller, obviously. Yeah.
And how did you know that you could make a living out of filmmaking?
To be honest, I never knew that I could make a living out of filmmaking, but it was just, I didn't know I didn't do anything else, so there's nothing else I could do, and that's also what I wanted to do. Obviously, there was, when you do that, there's a lot of questioning, if it's ever going to work out, but something always happened and kind of carries on, and at some point, it becomes only easier, to be honest.
Cool. And do you think having an agent is that an important thing for people, aspiring directors of photography? Do you think that that's really important to be aiming for?
Yes, I think it's totally crucial to have an agent to represent you, to discuss things with you, to also guide you a bit, what projects to take, and also to be doing all the kind of negotiations and so, which is nice not to have to do. Because before I had to do that, and that was not fun.
Yeah, no, it's nice to have someone deal with that. And do you watch a lot of other people's work for inspiration or to,
I do watch other people's work. I think that's really important, especially in the beginning. I did loads, and I studied everything I could get my hands on, really. But that's not always necessarily filmmaking. Can be all kinds of things. Whatever interests me, really, and that all falls. It's all part of some work or ideas. So it's not just filmmaking as such. Yeah, it can be good exhibitions.
Right.
Music.
Yeah.
I mean, music is great to get ideas. I think to when you work on a film, you listen to music. Gets you triggered.
Yeah. And what is the difference? I mean, you've come from working on some really gritty urban films, and then going to things like The Village and Downton Abbey, for sort of television. Yeah. What's the difference working on those types of projects?
I mean, the things you mentioned, there were period films, so they are in a way the approach is very similar, I think, because you tell stories. Sometimes you're more constrained, obviously, in period films because you can't show the world as it is because it doesn't exist, so you have to make it up. So you're constrained in what you can show and not, because if it's a period film, Downton Abbey, you can't show the council estate next door or whatever, obviously.
Why?
Yeah. So but more and more, actually, directors who do those period films want elements from this kind of more nitty-gritty, actually. So in a way, the things sometimes overlap a bit. So it's actually not that much difference in terms of working. Maybe obviously the stories, what they mean and what they're trying to express, are very different. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you've worked with some massive stars as well, people like Tilda Swinton and Claire Danes, just to name a few. How is it working with them? Do you have to be very careful about the way you shoot them?
No, you don't really have to be careful. I think for me, they're like everybody else. They're nice people and interesting, but I don't treat them in any other way. And but you maybe have a bit more distance because obviously they're stars and they want sometimes distance, sometimes not, depends. But after, towards the end of the shoot, normally this also, they're kind of like everybody else, and they also behave like everybody else, and there's kind of a community of the crew, and they're part of that as well. So it's actually no big deal.
Cool. Oh, and I suppose that they're so used to being on camera as well. And and I want to ask as well, because something really important to us here at the Soho London Independent Film Festival is sustainability in film. And I'm just wondering, because obviously you're working with a lot of equipment, etc. Are you seeing changes with more sort of green filmmaking? And how do you feel about that? And what are you doing to try and improve or bring transformation?
Yeah, I mean, there are two things. The way I see it, there's the story side of things, and that's not so much my part, but I think that's actually the biggest part, that you tell stories which normalize a new way of thinking about the environment, and if everybody knows we are in a kind of a very bad position which we have to change. So that it gets normalized, that I think filmmaking is such a huge part to inform the public that that in EastEnders, whatever, there's an electric car driving through the back of a shot. That makes actually the massive difference. So what I can do in my part in my everyday working kind of conditions is just to create less waste and have less of a footprint, CO2 footprint or whatever else that means. And what I do is normally I try to avoid generators. I don't normally use that many big lights. That's also part of my shooting style. Mm-hmm. And I use mainly LED lighting, which is super flexible, and it doesn't either very much very much electric power. So
right,
yeah, and it basically means just being kind of just looking at what you're creating and where the waste is going, and being that most of it's common sense. So on the last production on Essex Serpent, we basically powered everything from batteries, and that was for big night shoots, like big exterior night shoots. And we powered a techno crane from a battery. We didn't hardly use any diesel at all, I think. Also mindful with all the traveling. This is the biggest problem in the film industry. There's so much traveling.
Yeah.
I always drive an electric car as my production vehicle, and those kind of small changes, I think, can lead to something. And being aware what the cost is, what the impact is. I think that's crucial as well.
Yeah. No, it's really nice to hear that these big projects are being done like that. It's really very inspiring. And how do you choose projects? But you've just mentioned the Essex Serpent, which obviously, like Claire Bernard, who is just incredible. The projects that she's worked on. Are you attracted to those types of directors, or what is it that brings you in?
I'm definitely attracted to Claire Bernard, like that. Yeah, because I love their films. That's kind of that appreciation, and obviously, I want to work with them. So that's normally the stories, the films they make. That's, for me, the attraction. And if I get an opportunity to work with them, obviously, then I'm going to take it. And then work with them together and then prep, develop ideas, which is great fun. It's nothing better than that, really.
And tell me about Souvenir as well, because that was Joanna Hogg.
Yes.
Yeah, wow. How was that?
Yeah, it was fantastic. Joanna Hogg is an amazing artist. There's no question she's an artist 150%. So just working with her and just discussing things with her, you learn so much in a way that the way she deals with performances, and it was just the whole creative process is so out there. I've never, I have seen that before, really working in that kind of fashion as she does, which gives so much, freedom for the actors and gets this kind of amazing results, I think.
Wow. So how much of the script actually stays there, and how much changes with how she works? And
yeah, Joanna is a very specific case because she actually doesn't really work with scripts. She has very short outlines. So her scripts are maybe 20 pages of like a line for each scene, and that can also change. And sometimes everything else is improvised, and you kind of don't know really what's going to happen. So you don't rehearse. There's no rehearsals ever, and you don't really know. You can prep the parameters of the scene, but that's about it. So that's kind of a really good challenge, and you kind of think, oh my God, this is going to be really difficult. But actually, as a process, it really works.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more to it. It's not just that simple. So there's a lot more things in prep already. Joanna thought about it. She knows her story so well as well, so that she's got such a wealth of method and so on to fall back on. But it's a really fascinating process.
Oh God, it sounds amazing and what sort of stories touch you? What pulls you in?
It's always stories I feel I can relate, which do something in my stomach, about things I care, really. So it's just kind of what interests you. I think that's, you do the best in a way. So.
Yeah, if you care about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Which brings me on to another thing. Like I mentioned before, obviously with us at the festival, we're very keen on films that are shining a light on stories that matter.
Yeah.
How do you think that films have the potential to facilitate change?
I think, yeah, absolutely. Films are totally crucial to that. Arts, obviously, in general, but then film, especially because they're much more approachable than other forms, So I think you can communicate certain emotions which you can't do necessarily with other things. So there's something very specific about film, which does that so well, and everybody gets it. You can't explain it, but everybody, that's makes me, I feel something, and that's it. So, yeah.
Do you think independent film is the driving force in these types of films?
I think definitely independent film is a driving force, and I think often the more commercial films orientate themselves really, it comes after the independent films. A lot of ideas come from there, and filmmakers come from there, and independent films get watched by those filmmakers who do the big films as well, so it's definitely...
And there does seem to be a bit of a kind of step over now as well. I mean, like Clio doing this thing with Apple TV. It's, independent filmmakers seem to be stepping into television now. I mean, how do you think that's going to open up and make it more interesting within the more commercial sector of film?
Yeah, I hope so. I think that is great, because it gives, obviously, the independent filmmakers a much bigger audience. On the other hand, it can make those projects also much more interesting. Those stories get told and be seen by many more people, which is a great thing. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and also one of the other things that has been really praised about the Essex Serpent, with Clive just talking there, apparently the atmosphere has just, how do you go about creating an atmosphere on a film?
Yeah, I mean, that's a real process, and that's what you do in prep, and that's also where I feel, camera comes in a lot. Sound as well, sound is always a bit... but it's more subconscious, but it's extremely important for that as well. But, everything, all the departments come together, and we create a mood board and something, that's kind of the underbelly of the film. Obviously, the acting is very much in the forefront, and to create that mood is super important. And, we've developed that really together, a lot with references of not just films, but paintings, all kinds of things, photographs, or even music, all kinds of things come together, and then we create a kind of a mood. And on the Essex Serpent, we had a very clear kind of almost like a structure between two different moods, which were one was for kind of historic industrial London in the 19th century, and the other one was more for kind of the rural aspect of the story in Essex. And those two different worlds, how they are kind of bounced off each other and what they had in common, that's kind of, and that's, you communicate in all kinds of ways, but with the camera as well, with camera style and the lighting and colors and so on, really.
Oh, God, amazing. It worked.
Thank you.
And for people that, are looking to come through and be a DP and learn all this stuff, how do you think networking is something that's really important? Was it did you find that really helped you, or was it literally through making your films and and then them being seen in the festivals? Moving on, is there any sort of other bits of advice or tips you could give anyone to help move forwards? I
mean, my story is my story, so everybody's got their own ways, and you have to kind of find your own ways. But I'm a pretty shit networker, so that was definitely not the way I got in. So I just met kind of people who wanted to make kind of similar things to me, and that was really exciting. I worked also, I worked my bullocks off really, and I think you need to be very passionate about what you're doing, otherwise you can't sustain it. And I always did it because of it was just what I do. There was never a question about it. Yeah.
Cool. And have you got any tips for anybody watching today? So let's say 3 tips you've got for filmmakers.
I think you sometimes it's really hard, but I should definitely follow your heart or your ambition, and that will pay off in the end. It will be there will be definitely very times when you question it and say, oh my God, what am I doing? But I think if you stick to it, then you get a payoff. But you have to be persistent. So that's definitely crucial. And if filmmaking is about being also in a community and looking after each other, and just being open to that, who's around you, I think.
Nice. Yeah, it's good advice. And if you were looking to take on an assistant, what sort of qualities would you be looking for?
An assistant, that they're nice people, obviously absolutely key is that they're really great technicians. Like my crew now, there's just like, I'm in awe of them. There's no so much more, and it's about a lot of things than me technically. So that's obviously the key. But when they got that, then they're good people. They have a good set etiquette. They're calm. It's kind of they're passionate as well about it, and I like to work with them. Spend a lot of time. You spend so much time on set.
Yes.
So more than with your family. So.
Yeah, it's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's key. It's so many people talk about that in the industry that, like, actually, you've got to get on. You've got to be nice people because otherwise, it's you wouldn't want to be doing all those long hours.
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, you have to enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely, because it is so much passion and love, and you can see that in your work. I mean, it's so beautiful. It's been an absolute pleasure speaking to you today, and thank you so much for sharing all of this. It really, it's wonderful, and I hope everyone's got their pens out and writing down notes and things like that.
Good, okay.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
Thanks, everybody.